Different cultures, different myths, but somehow all of them imagined dragons. Why is this the one monster everyone seems to agree on? And what does that say about us? Does that mean dragons did exist? I mean, every culture has stories about them, so there has to be some truth to it, right? Well, that's obviously highly unlikely. But there is still a reason why the myth of dragons is present everywhere around the world. Let's talk about chaos, gods, and why dragons might be the most human thing we've ever imagined. However, most cultures have vastly different interpretations of dragons. They aren't all the same fire-breathing lizard we picture in fantasy games or movies. Let's take a quick tour. Many think of China as the origin of dragons. Here, dragons are sacred, not monsters, but symbols of balance and wisdom, tied to rain, rivers, and the emperor. The long dragon rides the clouds, brings fertility to the land, and represents the cosmic order. You're not meant to slay it, you're meant to respect it. In Europe, things get a bit toothier. Dragons here are chaotic beasts. They hoard gold, burn villages, and get slain by knights. Think of St. George stabbing the dragon, or Beowulf fighting the worm. Here, the dragon is a problem, a symbol of greed, destruction, or evil that needs to be overcome. However, in Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, isn't a beast. He's a creator god. He teaches humans, brings knowledge, and punishes arrogance. In Aztec and Mayan tradition, feathered serpents are tied to the cycle of life and death. And in India and Mesopotamia, they saw dragons as cosmic enemies. In Vedic myth, the god Indra kills the serpent Vritra to release the waters and restore life. In Babylonian stories, the goddess Marduk slays Tiamat, a primordial sea serpent, and forms the world from her body. So whether it's a divine protector, a greedy beast, or a chaos serpent, dragons pop up everywhere, and that's not a coincidence. So why dragons? Why not just snakes, storms, or big cats? Because dragons are the ultimate mashup. They can fly like birds, swim like fish, breathe fire like volcanoes, hoard like kings, and kill like gods. They're what happens when a culture tries to explain what it can't control. Floods, storms, volcanoes. That's a dragon. Take Fafnir from Norse myth. He started as a dwarf, but got so greedy he turned into a dragon, cursed by his own obsession. Or look at the Nagas in Hindu and Buddhist lore. They live underground or underwater and guard divine wisdom. They're not evil, they're keepers of knowledge. The dragon is the guardian at the edge of the known world, the final boss, the test, the fear, and sometimes the teacher. Psychologists like Joseph Campbell would call this a threshold guardian. The dragon is the force you face before you grow. It stands between you and your next stage, whether that's a hero defeating a monster or a monk reaching enlightenment. It's not always about killing the dragon. Sometimes you have to understand it. Fast forward to today, and dragons have evolved again. Now, they're tools, gods, entities. In Game of Thrones, dragons are weapons of mass destruction. Daenerys doesn't just rule with armies, she rules with fire and wings. In Skyrim, they speak a magic language that bends reality. In How to Train Your Dragon, they're misunderstood companions. It's not about defeating them, it's about coexisting. Stay with me now. I'll get to my point in just a second. Then you have dragons as divine figures. Look at Pokémon. The dragon legendaries are literal gods of time, space, and antimatter. In Elden Ring, dragons are tied to ancient power and sacred communion. And in Final Fantasy, Bahamut isn't just a beast, he's the bringer of judgment. And then, it gets weird. Digimon, Monster Hunter, Resident Evil. Here, dragons become bioweapons or evolutionary nightmares. Viral, unstoppable, not just big lizards, but force of nature entities. The point is, the dragon changed. It went from being the thing we fear to the thing we wield, or worship, or become. So why haven't we let go? Because dragons adapt. They are the most flexible monster in our collective imagination. Need a villain? Dragon. Need a protector? Dragon. Need a metaphor for climate change, war, or AI? You guessed it. Dragons scale with our fears. Once, they represented storms and floods. Then, they became metaphors for greed and war. Now they echo our fears of technology, extinction, and control. You don't outgrow the dragon, you just give it a new skin. Alright, but here's a different thought. If dragons were always symbols of power beyond control, and now we wield that kind of power, then maybe we are the dragons. We burn forests, we hoard wealth, we create things we can't undo. In some myths, that made dragons evil. In others, it made them gods. But dragons aren't just destroyers. In many cultures, they are guides, innovators, teachers, or guardians of wisdom. And maybe that's the point. The dragon isn't gone. It just looks back at us through the stories we tell. If you like that, and you're into ancient monsters, hidden myths, and weird but real connections between the old world and fiction today, stick around and maybe hit the subscribe button.